There we go. I don't know what the hell happened, but we got to figure it out. Welcome. Welcome to Run Up the Millions with Mark Childress, better known as Just Chill. No one calls me Mark. But a little bit about myself. I am federally licensed mortgage originator. I've been doing that for 12 years. I didn't help people with refinancing their homes. That's my primary focus. But within that, obviously, with all those clients over that time period, I've had to explore and dig into a lot of credit to be able to help people actually be able to qualify for refinancing or whatever the situation may have been. So with that, I've become a certified HUD counselor as well, so I can help people when it comes to rebuilding and reestablishing their credit, along with trying to find housing. And just make sure that everything is HUD appliance that they have. Um, complaints and things of that sort against landlords, so on and so forth. Right. That also means that I'm actually a fiduciary, so I have a fiduciary's responsibility. I don't care if it makes me money. You know what I'm saying? I want to make sure that it makes sense for my clients. So I think that's the biggest thing is ain't no amount of money in the world big enough to actually mess with your or fuck with your integrity. So just letting y'all know that. I don't believe this is a financial freedom show. I don't believe in financial freedom, quite honestly, simply because we ain't never gonna be free of, what I'm saying, the bills. Even if you ain't got no mortgage, you ain't got no car note, whatever, you still got insurance, you still got taxes. So quite frankly, we'll just never be financially free. But this hopefully this gives y'all some ideas and some tips on how to give yourselves a little bit of freedom of the shit that y'all actually got going on, if that makes any sense. All right. So the whole purpose of this is to help us with credit, with finances, with if you wanted to buy a house. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we're a very underserved community. And the one thing that kind of got me started into this outside of my own credit journey was I spoke to a client. This is probably like 10 years ago. And he's from my hometown. And he was in he was in a real bad spot. But um, like his knowledge just didn't allow him to understand the benefits of having a conversation with me, or even the wherewithal, because it would have put a lot of cash back into his pocket and clean this situation up completely. So that's kind of like the catalyst for this, and then going through my own credit journey where I fucked my shit up at some point in time, because we all go through them seasons, you know, and having to like learn how to what to pay off, what the ratios are, uh, knowing that if you pay off an installment, what I'm saying, what happens with that, so on and so forth. So I really took a lot of time to make sure that I knew what was going on, and then being able to help my family and a lot of my friends with rebuilding their shit. Um, that's really kind of been like the stamp on it. You know what I mean? So we're gonna dive in. Um, as far as like, I'm gonna try to keep it super basic. So for some folks, this might be rudimentary for you, but I want you to be able to break this down to shit, even your kids, so that they have an understanding. So we can break. Y'all are talking about breaking generational curses. This will allow us to do that. You know what I mean? And start some generational changes. So first and foremost, what is credit? I mean, the grand sense of it all is your ability to borrow somebody else's money and pay that shit back with a little bit of interest, you know. And if you don't, then they gonna ding you. You know what I'm saying? If you do, then they gonna give you a gold star, and that's the form of your credit score. Point blank, simple. A lot of questions as far as like how do you keep your credit in a good spot. You know what I mean? Why do I have shitty credit? Well, quite frankly, it could be a multitude of things. You ain't paying your shit back on time, or you ain't paying it back on all. That's like the number one thing is like your payment history. And then outside of that, if you having late payments, you know what I mean? If you're missing payments, Obviously, that's your payment history. But I'm sorry, your utilization is the second thing. So if you got cash or you got credit, a lot of times for us, you know what I'm saying, uh, credit mean get it. You know what I mean? So we feel like, especially with things being so expensive nowadays, um, you gotta a lot of people gotta rely on credit to be able just to keep food in the grocery in the refrigerator and what have you. So those are the two main things when it comes to having your credit fucked up. And then from there you got inquiries, which don't really account to much. Excuse me. And then outside of the inquiries, you got the type of credit that you have. So if you only got like credit cards or personal loans, what I'm saying, if you ain't got a good mix, then that accounts for a little bit too. So how do we fix this shit? All right. First and foremost, let's just say you're starting off. All right. There's a range of rates. I'm sorry, range of credit. Your score can go from 300 all the way up to 850, and your score is broken down into 5 different categories. All right. Before I get into the categories, I'll go over like the range. So anything above 800 is classified as excellent. Um, 799 down to 740 is really good. 739 to 670 is good, and then anything below 669 is average. Average 69 669 to 620 is average, and then below 620 is just like your shit's poor. So basically, what you want to do, your score is made up of 5 categories, like I was mentioning. You have your payment history, which is your biggest one. Your payment history accounts for 35% of your score's makeup, which could equate to up to 192 points. From there, you got utilization, which makes up 30% of your score. And that equates to up to 165 points. So just based off of 30, your utilization, your payment history, you're talking about 65% of your score makeup just by paying your shit on time and not reporting a large balance. All right. So notice I mentioned reporting. There is, when it comes to your credit report, we get the bill. I meant to pull one up. We get the bill, we see the due date. All right. Pay it by the due date. Cool. But when you open your credit card, the day that you open that card basically is the month that your statement day ends. So if I was to open a card today, October 14th, when I get my first statement in November 14th, then that's the day that the my credit card is reporting to the credit bureaus. All right. So if you report a high score, if you make your payment after the statement date, which your due date is generally after your statement date, excuse me, then you're reporting a higher balance because of that. All right. Your due date is usually 2 weeks roughly after your statement date ends. So ideally, one easy thing that you can do is, instead of making your payment on the due date, make it before the statement date. And you ain't got to pay it off, you know what I'm saying? But you just want to pay it down to the point where your utilization is showing, ideally, you want to be below 10%. Like being below 10%, um, it really does wonders for your score. But you want to be at a bare bones maximum. Like if you like high balances and shit like that, and you really want to try to chip away at it, you get it down to 48%. Anything above 48% is kind of classified as the same thing. Like it doesn't affect your scoring because they already classified it so high. But once you get down to 48%, then they start looking at your shit like, okay, they're working towards it. So good, gold star. And then from there it's 48, 38%, 28%. And I say 10% just because you want to show activity, but also you don't want to have super large balances. You know what I'm saying? when it comes to, especially credit cards, when it comes to credit cards, the way that credit card companies look at you is like they need the money to do whatever, right? So if you constantly swiping that card, swipe, 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 then they look at, that's why your score drops when you get that high utilization. They look at it like, okay, this person is not, might not necessarily be good with money, so to speak, which is why they have the high usage on the cards. Either that or they just kind of in a fucked up spot, right? But if you have like emergencies or whatever, that's something totally different. Anyway, so you want to keep this shit below 10%. That's the main goal. If you're in a perfect world, below 10, but at a maximum, you want to get it down to at least 48, to at maximum 48%. Right. Um, and when it comes to late payments, and we talked about late payments and payment history being 35% of your score, a late payment can drop your score. One late payment could drop your score up to 100 points. And a late payment isn't like the due dates today, and I don't make the payment today, I make the payment tomorrow. A late payment is only registered or reported to the bureaus when it's 30 days late. So as long as you make your payment, if you're going to be late, okay, you chalk it up. But as long as you make your payment before the end of the month, then it won't hit your credit report. You know what I'm saying? You still have the late fee or whatnot, but as far as it hindering your score, it won't. So that's a good way to make sure that even if things kind of coming in slow, you avoid that big negative hit with that late payment on there. All right. Also, with late payments remain on your report for 7 years. So and a lot of companies will try to leverage late payments when you try to buy something or finance something. They'll try to leverage that to give you a higher interest rate. I guess depending on the industry, that might be doable, but the late payments is just like it's based off of guidelines. You know what I'm saying? If you have a guideline, at least with mortgages, that's what the late payment has an impact on. It's already fucked up your score. You know what I mean? So don't let folks try to bamboozle you on that. Annually, you do get a free annual credit report every year, and you can actually go to annualcreditreport.com, and you'll be able to fill out your information, and they send you an actual credit report. I think it's all three of them, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I'm not 100% sure, but that's free. And then you can obviously do like Experian or TransUnion. You can pay for them to monitor your scores. Another thing when it comes to your scores, like your score don't technically change every day. You know, um, and that's because your score changes when shit's reported to it. So if you got say a Capital One card that statement dates on the 15th, you got an Amex where the statement dates on the 12th, and then you got a personal loan where the statements you know the 13th, whatever. Them the only days that shit is actually reporting to your credit. You know what I'm saying? So you can check it out, but it's all going to be based off of whatever the day is of your statement that reports to the credit. That's how that works. Because I know there's sites like Credit Karma and what's the other one? Credit Wise. You're able to check your credit regularly, and that's another thing too. What I brought that up is that when it comes to the Vantage Score or Credit Karma or Credit Wise, those are what's called your Vantage scores. Right. So those are scores that they tend to be a little bit inflated because they're not based off of a financial decision. You know what I'm saying? They're not looking at the actual history. They're just kind of reporting the news. So those scores generally are higher than what you get on the TransUnions or the Experience, because they take those into consideration. There's different models when it comes to credit reports too. So you have, like I said, you have your Vantage report that Credit Karma does, and then certain industries will use different models like FICO 9 or FICO 8 or FICO 2, like for cars or mortgages, what have you. Um, but generally, the whole premise is if you whatever your credit profile is going to transfer over, whether it's Vantage or FICO 8, what have you. If you have shitty credit, what I'm saying, on Credit Karma, you're gonna have shittier credit because you're gonna have real numbers on the actual FICO 8 or whatever. You know what I mean? If you have great credit, it's going to correlate across the mode. So I just primarily focus on just ensuring that you have good fucking credit. All right. So if you are currently like struggling to, I won't say struggling to pay the bills, but if you have credit cards and your primary focus is to try to get out of the credit card debt, um, what I always recommend is the snowball effect. And there's two ways you can do it, right? You can do it where you can attack the high interest accounts first and pay them off as fast as possible, or you can start with the low balance. You know what I'm saying? The lowest balance, get it at zero, move up to the next one. You know what I'm saying? The snowball, what you were going to pay towards that account to the next one, so on and so forth. So there's two ways you can do it. There's really no right or wrong way between those two. Just depends on your preference. I'm key to starting low and then going high. I just like the aspect of knowing that shit's actually off the report. You know what I'm saying? That might be the OCD in me. But here's an actual credit report that I pulled up. This is a sample report. So I'm going to pull this up so I can actually see what the report looks like. We'll go over it too, break it down. Share my screen. All right, I don't know if y'all can see this. Y'all should be able to see it because I can see it. So this is what your credit report generally will look like at, what I'm saying, depending on where you go. You're gonna have your information, your date of birth, social, whoop de woo. And then in some cases they're gonna have like previous addresses that you lived at, like in this area here. And then you have your scores. So this one gives you two scores. So your Vantage score, 590, and then their TransUnion score, 533. And it'll give you like a breakdown on why your score is what it is. You know. So this person had a bankruptcy, and they'll go over like your public records. You know what I'm saying? If you have a lien on the house, if you had a judgment or a bankruptcy, you will see all that on here. And then also, generally, if you have an open collection will be like down here in the actual meat of it all. Um, it wouldn't necessarily be up here, but every bureau or every report is going to look different depending on where you're pulling it from. So, like I mentioned, you got the bankruptcy, the judgment stuff here. And then it's going to go over your trade line. So you got a car note, tells you the car note, the balance. It's past due right now. It's in dispute, and it's had like this the late payments: 130-day late, 160-day late, 190-day late. I'm sorry, 5 90-day lates. Um, and that's generally how the report will read. It'll be whatever your ABC bank, like you say, your car, whatever, your mortgage, so on and so forth. Right? And then at the very bottom, it would generally have like if you were married and you change your last name, it'll have your old names on there, with the social, like I said before, your address is on there, and then have inquiries. So your inquiries would be here on who pulled your credit. There's a lot of misconception on inquiries that like they have this huge impact. When you have your shit pulled, and quite honestly, inquiries really only count up to what, like 10% of your actual score. So you can have inquiries on there and not have your score get fucked up. You know what I mean? Because you're looking to buy something. So you always hear people talk about, I have good credit. I don't want to ruin my credit, and by having you pull it, like, I can't tell you what you eligible for, what you qualify for without it. But I digress. Um, So that's a credit report. I'm trying to end this thing. Oh, stop sharing. All right. So if you're starting off with like building out your credit, and one good idea is to you want to have four different accounts ideally when you're starting out. So if you have no credit at all, or you just stop using credit and it went away or whatever, ideally you want to have four accounts. So you want to satisfy your credit mix, and you want to satisfy, excuse me, and it's going to help with your credit history with building up the trade lines. So you want to have at least two credit cards. Right? It could be secured, whatever type of credit card it is, as long as it reports to the bureaus. Two credit cards. You want to have what's called a long-term loan, which can be like anything over 5 years. So your car note, your mortgage, uh, something along those lines. And then you want to have a short term. Your short term is really more like a personal loan, anything that's 3 years or less. And that's going to give you your credit mix, which is up to 55 points. Obviously, is going to help with your trade lines, which is going to help with utilization, and it's going to also because you're going to have so much credit now that utilization is going to be high, or sorry, going to be low. And then with keeping up the payments, now you're going to have good payment history. You know what I'm saying? So you want to have those, and that should honestly, if you just did that, that should get you 700. Just maintain it. If you have those four accounts, you have at least a 700 credit score. You know, um, what else did I miss anything? There's three bureaus. The three bureaus are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Now you're gonna have these three different scores between all three, and that's particularly because not everything is going to report to all three bureaus. So your car note might report to all three. Um, one credit card might report to two, another one might report to one. You know what I'm saying? So you're gonna have your three scores based off of what's reported. It's kind of crazy. Like when I was growing up, and when I started getting credit, I looked into my shit to be about 19, and I realized that I had an account on my report from 1982. Now, I was born in 1985. So one cool or crazy thing in my situation, or if you have kids, they have your name, is your shit can report to their credit. Me and my dad got the same name, and his stuff was reporting on my credit. So I appreciate you for allowing me to, establish my shit early, Pop. Um, but be mindful of that. Like this is why you want to actually check your report, because if you have someone that has a similar name, and I've seen this shit where Sue Jackson, who lives in New Jersey, um, and it shows Sue Jackson on the report that lives in Glenwood, Kentucky, or some shit. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know if that's a real place, but you want to make sure that when you look at your stuff, that you're not seeing stuff that could be somebody else's, because obviously now you're getting dinged for their shit. You don't want that. I talked about the statement date versus the due date for credit reports. Um, I hope I didn't go too fast, man. I know I said a lot, you know, and I know it's been about 25 minutes, but I just want to make sure that at least we have a good idea on bare bones, you know what I'm saying, what the credit is. Again, it's just you being able to borrow somebody else's money and pay that shit back, on time, on time. And from there, with you being able to show that, obviously, having a good credit score is going to allow you to be able to um, borrow more, buy more, if you needed to. You know what I'm saying? The average person right now in America, the average person has less than $3,000 in their bank account. You know what I'm saying, as far as savings is concerned. So credit cards is going to be something that we obviously rely on heavily. If the car fucks up, or you know what I'm saying, you got to get your windows replaced, or whatever the fuck happens, you know what I'm saying, this life be lifing, then just being making sure that we're responsible with it. I mentioned earlier that with credit for us, for black folks, credit mean get it in a lot of cases. And that may have been cool when we was younger, but for a lot of us that's, you know, 30s and above, now is the time to be able to take the reins, give the shit that we necessarily didn't necessarily get when we was growing up, and be able to ensure that the kids that's coming up behind us don't fall into the same traps that we had to learn from. And that's think of that, and I think of like shit. This had to be more than 10 years ago. So my mom had wrote me a letter once, and it was like 14 years ago. It was like 2010, and the letter's like it was a 4-page letter. I shit you not, it was 4 pages long. I still got it. And in the letter, it was basically a letter saying like, don't fuck up your credit. You know what I'm saying? Like credit is super important. Don't ever let someone co-sign, or don't ever co-sign for someone. And that's in some cases that's hard to do, but when it's all said and done, you're the one that's responsible for that bill if you do it. You know what I mean? And I definitely understand family. Um, but in this world, we're only responsible for ourselves. We can only hold ourselves responsible or accountable for the things that's going on. So just be mindful of that shit, man. There's a 4-page letter just talking about don't fuck up your credit. Things not to do when it comes to your credit. Like I said, don't co-sign. Don't overextend yourself. If you can't pay what you borrow, this is a good rule of thumb. If you can't pay what you borrow in a month, at the end of the month, don't buy that shit. And that's something I had to tell myself too, because I mean, I like shit. You know what I mean? And I like to do things or what have you. So that was a real tough pill to swallow. When I fucked my shit up, like really having to sit down for a minute to be able to reestablish and circumvent where I wanted to go and what I wanted to be able to do. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna do this every week. We're gonna do this every week, every Monday. And what I like from y'all is just if y'all have any questions, throw them in the chat, throw them in the Facebook chat. Make sure you hit the group, sign up for the group, throw them in the Facebook chat. You can DM me on IG at Mark Chill, or you can put them on the YouTube thing. You can make a comment there. So I'm gonna leave y'all with a quote, man. This is a quote from a great Roman general. I think he's a Roman general. His name was. He said, "What we do in life echoes in eternity." That was Maximus Decimus Meridius. What we do in life echoes in eternity, and basically, what that means to me is that like we're creating our own history right now. Like, real time, we are creating the fucking future. You know what I'm saying? And so we want to be able to look back and ensure that the ripples that we're creating in time ain't fucking us over. You know what I mean? So, hey, I appreciate y'all for tapping in, for joining in, and make sure y'all hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Follow the button, follow button on Facebook, and then you can follow me as well on IG, and we'll try to make sure we get this thing up and running for y'all. You know what I'm saying? And run it up. 2025 is going to be a whole nother thing for us, man. Promise you. All right. See y'all next time.